Thanks for checking out this horror debate series video. So we covered the best horror franchise, we covered the worst horror franchise, and now it's only suiting that we talk about the most underrated horror franchise. We'll also be doing the most overrated, but for now, let's talk about underrated. So just keep in mind that the most underrated horror franchise is not going to be the same thing or even close to necessarily the best franchise. Just to remind you, I picked Evil Dead for the best franchise. This one, in comparison to Evil Dead, is not nearly as good as that, and you'll see why, but I do think it's vastly underrated. Now, just real quick as a reminder, or for anyone who's new to this, what you do with this, you finish out my video, get all my reasonings for my choice for this debate topic, then you go over to your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete's channel, which is linked in my description, and you watch his video of the same name, get his pick and all his reasonings for that. Then you come back here, if you want to, go to my community tab, and you can vote on who you think had the best arguments, or you can even say it's a tie, because that's an option. There have been so many people who are just like, you guys are so good at this, it's made it too hard to decide, so tie. That's fine. So, I'm sure there are plenty of people out there, knowing me, who are just going to assume he's going to pick Phantasm for the most underrated. That's a great pick. I really do think that's a great pick, and a very large part of me wanted to do that. But when I really thought about it, I thought about this one franchise that it's never talked about. Phantasm gets talked about a little bit here and there. It is very underrated, but this one's even more underrated because it never gets talked about, and that is Tremors. Tremors actually is a wonderful franchise. Not every installment is the best, and I'll go over them. I'm going to tell you what ones are in here. I can't read them off the back of this. My wife got this for me for a few Christmases ago, I believe, because I fell so in love with Tremors, and maybe part of my love for the Tremors franchise has to do with the fact that I watched the entire thing during the thick of the pandemic when everyone was inside not leaving their house. So, times were rough, mental health situations were rough at that point, so it was a very big bright spot. So maybe that's part of the reason I love it so much, but I think if you objectively watch this and step back and take a look at it, you realize this actually is a very fun, good franchise. I think one of the reasons it does not get as much credit, I guess, as it should is because it's not heavy on the horror, it's not super serious, and it's not quite a horror comedy. Yes, there's some comedic stuff to it, but it's not really a horror comedy. It's just more of like horror light in a sense, but it's still a horror franchise in my opinion. So let me go over the films in the franchise, and I'll tell you which ones I did and did not like, by the way, because there were a few that I really loved and a few that I just not great. So I think a lot of people will agree that the first one, just called Tremors, is a very good film, very fun. Tremors 2, Aftershocks came after that, which I was a fan of. 1990 for Tremors, 1996 for Tremors 2, Aftershocks. Then in 2001, there was Tremors 3, Back to Perfection. I really enjoyed that one. Then in 2004 was Tremors 4, The Legend Begins, kind of like an origin story. I hated that one. That's the one I like the least out of all of them. Then in 2015, there was Tremors 5, Bloodlines. I actually did enjoy that one. That was kind of interesting. Then in 2018, Tremors, A Cold Day in Hell, which I didn't really like, but for some reason my wife actually really enjoyed that one. More so than Bloodlines, so, everyone's going to have their favorites and not favorites. And then in 2020, the last one they did, which was Tremors Shrieker Island, which I think went straight to Netflix when it came out. But that one, surprisingly good for being the 7th installment in that franchise. And then there was also a TV show. Yeah. Yes, I bought the TV show, and it's only out on DVD. Someone needs to fix this issue. We need to get this on Blu-ray or even 4K, because I'm sure they have the ability to get a 4K out of the negatives for this if they're still around. But I think you might still be able to buy this set through Best Buy online. That's where I got it a few years ago, and it might still be available because it's not that popular, but it is a good series. I'll talk about it a little bit more as I get into my bullet points about this. So, first bullet point on Tremors. Most of the movies are enjoyable. At the least enjoyable. At the most, a really good time and well written. Other than what I said. What did I say? I didn't like 2 of them. 2 of 7. That's good. I mean, if 2 of 7, and this is obviously just my opinion, but if 2 of 7 movies in a franchise are in my opinion not good, that's a really good franchise, actually. And the fact that no one talks about this franchise, and there are 5 movies that I think are quite good, it's criminal. It's criminal, really. My second bullet point, it has a sci-fi show that has a lot of charm to it. Yes, that show I was just showing you here and talking about. Sure, it's a made-for-sci-fi TV show, so you can kind of know what to expect from it. The CGI from when it was made, really terrible, but the story is so good. How they make it episodic, it's got almost this kind of like Scooby-Doo type feel to it, but with the whole like through line of El Blanco being there, which is a white graboid that is around in the town of Perfection. But it's so charming, especially because you get that kind of like slice of life, like what the daily life is like in Perfection, which is really cool because the characters are enjoyable characters and you want to kind of know their relationships. Plus, it's just like a cozy, quaint little town that's very much isolated, and it's just interesting to see how they deal with the graboids being there, especially kind of living along with El Blanco. So it's a really good show. It's a great mix of some actual horror aspects, but also it's kept light, fun, and at times actually funny. How many franchises can you say that about? Yes, you can say something like Evil Dead, that yes, they have actual comedy in there. It's actually light, and it's fun, and it's funny sometimes. So just like Tremors, well, Evil Dead's a lot better at it, but just like Tremors, it has all that stuff kind of wrapped up. So you don't go through it and like a series like Saw, it's a very specific feel to it. It's very dark, and it's potentially depressing to some people. You watch the Tremors franchise, and you're going to be feeling pretty good, in my opinion, unless you don't like some of the movies, but there will be movies that you like, and the overall feel, the atmosphere, the pacing of the movie, the subject of it, it is all stuff that's going to keep you feeling relatively upbeat. Even when there's danger in the movies, it's not scary. It's not filled with dread. It's just fun. It's so much fun, and I think that's one of the biggest things that people are missing out on if they're not watching this entire franchise. There's so much fun to be had with it. So moving on to my next bullet point, the creation and development of the town and the people are so well done that you do enjoy the daily life stuff, primarily in the show. That's where it shows up, because they need to pad the show a little bit for runtime, since it's a bunch of episodes that are, I think, were like an hour long. So that's going to happen, but it doesn't feel like it's bad padding. It feels like, man, I'm just getting to know these characters a lot more, getting to know their relationships, getting to know their lives in this cool town of Perfection. And so I love that. I love that about it. And that speaks to how well developed the town and the people really are. And then, like I said, that through line of, just living with graboids, which is a very interesting concept, especially after watching the very first movie. Like, you believe that there's no way that people could live with graboids at that point. So it is quite interesting where they go. The evolution of the graboids is actually interesting and creates more opportunities for the movies. This is how it kind of stays fresh, in my opinion. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons that the 4th movie I don't like at all, is it feels like it brings nothing new. It's one of those origin story ones, and it's just not interesting because it's a bunch of rehashing stuff. But other than that, there's new stuff in every single movie. It's not just, same formula, it's just going to always be the same. They mix it up. Yes, some of the same stuff happens with the same characters because they're the same people, but you get a lot of new stuff because there is an evolution to the actual graboids. They don't always just stay as their graboid form from the first movie. And there was a lot of intelligence in actually moving the storyline that way throughout the movies, to be like, look, what happens if this is just kind of a larval stage, the graboid, and there are other iterations, there are other evolutions of these creatures. It just makes it more interesting and fun, and you're kind of always looking forward to what's the next thing. So it does keep interest in the overall franchise, and I think they do a great job with that. And my final point, and this is probably the most important point, At least for me it is. Burt Gummer, the character of Burt Gummer, played by Michael Gross, is such a compelling and magnetic character that you just want to stay with him. You want to see as much Burt Gummer as you can. Unfortunately, I believe he's not in the second one, Aftershocks, but he is in all the other ones other than that, including the TV show. Now, they've hit so many angles throughout the franchise of storyline with this. They've gone as far as they can for the most part with Burt Gummer. And apparently there actually was potentially another show that was being shopped around with Kevin Bacon and his character Val from the first movie. And literally the show was just going to be what happened with Val after the events of the first Tremor movie, which would have been really cool for someone like me. I would have loved to, gotten more story to what happened after that first movie, but we really did not end up getting it. I think it was shopped to, maybe it was Sci-Fi who was heavily considering it again, and then they just decided to pass on it. It may have been someone else. I don't remember, maybe Showtime or something like that. But there's always hope that maybe it catches on at some point. Someone finds the pilot episode and is like, let's do this. I don't know. But Burt Gummer is such a badass, interesting, fun character that you can really identify with. Like, as far as just badass characters in horror movies, Burt Gummer is up there 100%. He gets the job done. He doesn't have time for pain. He just goes after it and goes at it, and he's like the sheriff of all things graboid, basically. It's pretty awesome, and the relationships he has with people are a lot of fun as well. But they obviously hitched the franchise to him, and it works because he is such an interesting, great character, and a lot of that is in the writing, but also a lot of that is the actual acting style of Michael Gross. And I'm so happy to report, for anyone who hasn't watched the franchise, that Michael Gross plays Burt Gummer the entire way. So that is a rare thing, but I love it. So anyway, those are all my points on why I'm choosing Tremors as the most underrated horror franchise. This is where I want you to tell me, what do you think is the most underrated horror franchise and why? You don't have to give me a lot. You give me like a sentence or two, whatever you feel like. Or if you want to give me a lot, you can do that. And then you can also leave the same comment on my video as you leave on Uncle Pete's, because we don't really, sometimes we do, but not all the time. We don't read each other's comments. So literally you can just save yourself some time if you want to comment on both of them. But thank you so much for being a part of this and sticking around for these videos. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I know Uncle Pete is as well. So it means a lot when people are getting involved and enjoying it. So thank you so much. Do us both a favor. Hit subscribe to both of our channels. We would appreciate that. If you already are subscribers, you are awesome. We appreciate the support. If you're not, please join up and support us. We would appreciate that. Also hit the notification bell button for both our channels if you want to know when we're putting up new videos. I'm putting up 3 a week at this point. He is putting up 2 a week. I believe two every week. I'm not 100% sure. He may take off one some weeks, but not 100% sure on that. But regardless, thank you very much for being involved with this. Thanks for watching these videos. And until next time, keep it brutal.